Welcome everyone to Healthy for Life. It is week 4 and hopefully everything is going well for you this week and you found some fun ways to be more active and to keep track of that in the last week, at least put a little thought into it. I know I've talked to several of you about different things that you're dealing with as far as activity goes. So I hope you really took to heart what we talked about last time with making the activity and the exercise requirement work for you. So let me get my presentation started and we'll get going. So the topic for this week is what's in there, learning what's in food. And I think this is timely because I've had conversations with several of you as well to troubleshoot how to record food, how to measure food, how to keep track. Because as you get into it, you all probably know at this point, there's always that thing that comes up or multiple things that are happening. Maybe it's someone that makes recipes for you and the recipe isn't exactly in whatever you're using to track it, or you're not sure how to measure the portion size in meats, but hopefully we'll answer some of those questions a little bit further in this presentation today. So before we get there, as we always do at the beginning, perhaps you would want to share any successes or challenges that you've run into. We've been at this. This is our 4th week. So at the end of this week, it'll be a month that we've been at this. We started gradually, but hopefully at this point, you are to the point where you can make a decision about your intake. And if you want to, if weight loss is something that's a goal for you, then you're at the point now where you have all the tools that you need to start to maybe see some of that weight loss. I know some of you have already, and that's really great. So successes or challenges, anything that you want to share? Challenges, time. Yeah, hard to find enough time to exercise and to take the time to log the intake. Yeah, we already have busy lives, don't we? And we're adding something on top of it. I think of it kind of, the comparison that comes to my head for that is it's kind of like when I had children. And I know not all of you have had children, but bear with me. When I had children, there was a lot of things that I did prior to that I found that I didn't necessarily need to do. I always joke and laugh and say that when I had my second child, I discovered that I only really needed to shave half my leg and not my whole leg because each little change or modification I make like that into my schedule allowed me to do the things that I did need to do or that I did want to prioritize. And in my head, this is similar to that, where you really have to make it a priority. So you find places where it'll give in the rest of your life. But that is, you're correct, that is a bit of a challenge and can be a painful experience to figure that out. I'm buying, cooking, and eating more vegetables, but it still seems, what seems like uncontrollable eating days where what I see is what I eat. Yeah. And it feels uncontrollable sometimes, doesn't it? Especially when you start paying attention to that. I'm starting to see some of that myself, where there's days where I'm just like, oh, I'm just not going to write it down, because if I write it down, then it makes my calories not look right. Or, you know, I'm thinking about, should I have 2 caramels or should I have 4 caramels? Because if I have 4 caramels, I'm going to go over my calorie limit. So there's a bit of that happens. Yeah. Where balancing kind of the positive parts of tracking with the negative parts of tracking. I had a really good week this last week. I really buckled down with the tracking, found an app that I'm using that I really like, and I actually lost some weight this week. Yay, that's awesome. Good for you, Janelle. Having one beer really sabotages my weight loss. Oh my gosh, it is so true. Alcohol, yes, alcohol. Second in calories only to fat, has lots of calories, and it really almost seems like it has more of an effect than it really should, just like calorie wise for a lot of people, the alcohol does. So yeah, that's really interesting. Challenge remains logging food. Yep. Success, your comment, you can't outrun your mouth. That really hit home with me. Yeah, it's true, unfortunately. Struggle with increasing my water intake. Yeah, isn't it interesting when you pay attention to how much water you're taking in? It's like, gosh, I really don't drink enough water. Gained a pound even though I walked, exercised more last week, or maybe because of it. How would I determine if I have gained muscle weight? You know, exercise can be really counterintuitive. That's why when we've been talking to this point, really the focus should be on what you're eating and then including exercise to support that, because a lot of times people find that when they try and use more calories just through exercise, that it seems to have a counterintuitive effect where you think that you should be losing weight, but you actually don't lose weight, or you might gain some weight. There's lots of theories out there for that. You know, if you exercise more, it makes you a little more hungry. You eat just that little bit extra, that tips the balance. There's lots of theories out there about that. But it's an interesting conundrum, isn't it? Traveling, success or challenge. It can be both. Struggle to plan meals. All or nothing thinking. Yes, yes. Logging keeps me accountable. Me too. Success, listening to my body and focusing on rest and hydration after minor surgery last week. Yes, yes, yay, huzzah. Weight Watchers leaders always say only track on the days you want to lose weight. Yeah, right. So if you want to lose weight today, then you should track. Yep, I like that too. Water is a big thing for me. How do I get more water? I've been trying, but it's so hard. Strategies for water. I also struggle with water intake. Bought a spiralizer and learning to use it, and I bought the Calorie King book too. It's been a great combination. I love those side-by-side meal things where they were compared there. Okay, awesome, great. Some good successes and some good challenges for this week. To address the water thing, there's lots of different ways that you can do it, depending on if it's that you just don't like water or if it's that you forget to drink water. There's different reasons why people struggle with water intake. But if you don't like water, try infusing your water, try drinking regular plain tea with nothing in it, preferably herbal instead of caffeinated. Or if you, and we'll go over this in more detail in future webinars as well. But if you just forget to drink the water, then you need to think about strategies like, do I get myself a really cool water bottle and I fill it up every morning and I put it right beside my workstation so I remember to drink. Some people like to use like the ones that have the markings on the side that show how much they've drank, and they aim to drink like 3, and they put like a reminder to drink water on their computer. They might put a post-it up there. Any of those kinds of things might be things to try. Or for me, what I've been using to trigger myself to drink water is when I start feeling snacky, like I know I've had enough to eat, but I'm still feeling hungry, then that's when I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't drank any water for a while. So that's been reminding me to drink some water. So there's some ideas for you. Again, we will come back to that as well in future webinar. All right, so we already started with the reflecting on your week, maybe based on what you thought of just now for successes or challenges. Maybe put that note down somewhere, and a note on the notes. So when I say to note how you did during the week, successes, challenges, all those sorts of things, it's really helpful for your future self if you write down what your successes are, how you got there, what you've been doing, how you're feeling on any given day, because the benefit of writing it down is that your future self can come back and you can look through it and you can be like, oh yeah, that's what I did. or, oh yeah, I remember I had that. It can really help your future self to maintain the weight that you've lost, or to remember what the things were exactly that you were doing during this process. Because a lot of times it'll come around, because things happen in your life in the future, and you'll come back. You'll be like, how did I track that weight? What was it that worked for me? So if you put a note down, you can just go into your binder, into your computer, wherever you keep it, and it'll be right there to help you remember. So that's a helpful thing about writing a note about how you feel you did this week. Maybe take a look at how your intake was over the course of the week, and see if it's where you want it to be with the calories. Again, some of you are maintaining weight, some of you are trying to lose weight. So check out those calories and see where they're at, and then compare it to how your weight is doing. So if you've already taken your weight for this week, you can take the time now to fill out that weight chart and continue with the trend. So making a line from last week's weight to this week's weight to see which direction you're going. Hopefully it's down if you want it to be down, or even if you want it to be even. One thing that I had to share with you all that I found this week that just totally shocked me. I took my kids to Dairy Queen, and I'm sorry for all these sweet food cues, but this was, I think you'll enjoy this. So took my kids to Dairy Queen after their soccer games this weekend to give them a little treat. And I was going to have something too. And I was sitting in the drive-through line, and I'm thinking to myself, should I have a dip cone or should I have a Blizzard? Because I like them both. And so I tried really quick to look up on my phone before I had to order, what the calories were to compare, but I didn't have enough time. So I ended up just ordering a Blizzard. And then when I got home and I went to track it, I found out that a small dipped cone from Dairy Queen has like 400 calories or so. But a small chocolate chip cookie dough Blizzard has 710 calories. 710 calories. I know. I was like, what? How can that be? It's only this big. Is there even a room for that many? And I went and I looked on Dairy Queen's website, and I looked at multiple different places to make sure it just wasn't, inaccurate, because a lot of the information that's put in there is put in there by users. So it's not always accurate. And sure enough, that's what the Dairy Queen website says. So, like another, I know. So like another participant that I was talking with said, you just got to go for the mini, not the small, the mini Blizzard, because then that's more doable as far as the calories go. I know. I was like, that's more calories than I'll eat in a lunch meal sometimes. I was shocked. So I thought you all would enjoy that shocking revelation that I had this week. A mini Blizzard. Yep. 2 meals. I know. So it is a very interesting process for me, and hopefully it's been a very interesting process for you. So hopefully that gave you enough time. My little story gave you enough time to talk through, or to write through and think through how you did for this week, and I didn't distract you too much. So what is in there? Because that's the focus for today, is what's in there. And we're going to, like I said, just try and absorb what you can absorb today. Don't feel like you have to learn it all today or tomorrow or next week. The learning curve is really steep right now. So I'm going to throw a lot of information at you today, but even if you can just retain one thing out of everything I'm going to throw at you today, and maybe apply it to where you've been seeing some challenges, then this will be a win. So let's jump in. Food is complicated, right? Getting to know food is a lifelong journey. Like I just said, try not to let it overwhelm you. Try and just, one thing at a time, just one thing at a time. Pick the thing that's most interesting to you, and then focus on that. And the other stuff will come as you come through time. It's a lifelong journey. I'm a registered dietitian, and I still don't know everything there is to know about food, and I never will, but it's fun to learn. Focus on what you do know, and then look just a little bit further. What tools do we have? We have labels, we have ingredients, and we have that interest, that energy towards learning more. Reading the label is always a good first step in selecting food. if there is a label, right? The next step is learning what's not on the label. So we're going to talk about both of those things today. And of course, I have to have a funny in here. It's not a Calvin, but it's still good. He's at a burger place, and she says, "May I take your order, please?" He says, "Let's see, I'd like a," and she says, "Sorry, we have to post the calories on the menu board." And he says, "Are you trying to give me a heart attack?" I know. Funny. Drive-through menus has changed my mind many, many times. Yep, it's so true. It's just like that example I shared with you. It's like my brain is like, how can they fit that many calories in that small of a thing? It just blows my mind. So know what you eat. For your weight loss, you get the best results by focusing on your food intake. I already talked about this when we were talking about the exercise. You must learn this skill for a lifelong diet success. So even for me, someone who's done this multiple times in my life, who is a registered dietitian, I am still finding new things as I do this. It really is a lifelong journey. So you really want to cultivate some interest in what's going on with that. It helps fit together the puzzle of the diet that's just for you, because you are not an average person. You are an individual. And so applying all these recommendations and all of, this is good for you, this is bad for you, should have more of this, should have more of that, and these are the things you like, and these are the things you don't like, and this is where you live, and you have access to this. And so it's like a puzzle that you kind of put together over time, one of those really big 2,000 piece puzzles, if you will. You can get little sections of it put together, but it takes quite a while to get a good picture. What types of things do you typically eat? Now that you have 3 weeks worth of food log, you've probably got a pretty idea of the types of things you typically eat. What do you really enjoy? And how do those things fit into an overall healthy diet? Are there any tweaks that you can make to what you are typically eating to make it into a healthier diet that you'll still enjoy? So here's a little person in the grass, right? Getting to know yourself. On the food and fitness log, find foods with surprising stats, foods that are repeated during the week, foods that are high in calories, and common threads. And by common threads, I mean, are there foods that are repeated in the week that are high in calories? I know there certainly are for me, for sure. And those days when I ate those foods, those were the days that it was hardest for me to keep my calories down where I want them to be. So hopefully when we were looking at that a few minutes ago, you did find some of those things. But if you didn't, maybe just take a quick peek at it and see if there's a common thread in there. I was shocked at the calories in salads at restaurants. Yeah. The lettuce in salads gives it a halo effect, doesn't it? But salads can actually be higher in calories than a sandwich, or, if you were going to go to a fast food restaurant, sometimes a burger has less calories than the salad that they offer, surprisingly enough. At what point do you call it high in calories? Oh, that's an interesting question, isn't it? That is your own discretion. I certainly can look at the foods that are on my list and have an idea which ones I think are higher in calories. Certainly foods that are high in fat, right? So butters, sauces, dressings, cheese, high fat dairy, high fat meats, all of those things will be high in calories. If you look at grains, typically speaking, grains are going to be higher in calories per volume. So you're looking at rice, you're looking at bread, all of those things can be higher in calories. Sugar, anything that has sugar in it, probably going to be a little higher in calories. That's what I would say as far as high calories. It's not, there's not really a standard definition for it. But I think when you look at your food log, you're going to be able to identify which foods are a little higher in calories. And we'll go over some of those too. Just the facts. So this is your nutrition facts label. This is the label I was referring to that you can find on processed foods and some unprocessed foods as well. And I don't expect you to memorize this, but as you can see from this picture, there's actually quite a bit of information you can glean from the label if a food does have label. The serving size, the number of servings in the container, the total fat, what kinds of fat are in it, the amount of sodium, fiber, protein, vitamins. So what's missing from an ingredient label? Right? A nutrition facts label, the ingredients part of it can tell you even more than just the nutrition facts label. So often we say, just look at the label, and what you're thinking is this nutrition facts label, right? That tells you the calories, total fat, total carbohydrate, fiber, protein, all of that kind of stuff. In a lot of ways we are, but the ingredients list can tell you very much a lot more about how quote unquote healthy a food is. What you should know about the ingredient list is that ingredients are listed in weight, right? So they're listed from the foods that have the highest weight in the food to the lowest weight in the food. There will be allergy warnings on there. So if anyone is allergic to nuts or any of those kinds of things, then that will be listed there. The ingredient list is also where you can tell if it's a whole grain. It's where you can tell where the sweet part of it comes from. What's the sweetening source? Where does the fat in it come from? Is it good fat or is it bad fat, if you want to give it that label? For overall health, generally speaking, you should recognize every ingredient on the ingredient list. Some of them you look at and it's like, I don't even know what that is. I can't even pronounce it. So a lot of times, generally speaking, that may not be the healthiest food. And I mean, so Kyle, your comment about if there's more than 5 ingredients, then it's unhealthy to a certain extent. But if you're looking at an ingredient list for like a minestrone soup, you're going to have tomatoes, you're going to have beans, you're going to have all the ingredients for the pasta that's on there. You're going to have, you know what I mean? So you're going to end up with a list that's much longer than 5 ingredients, but you're going to be able to recognize pretty much every single thing on that list. And that's kind of more what we're looking for than limiting the number of ingredients. And I will show you examples of what I mean with this. Okay, so here's a great example of what I mean with this, right? So we have Quaker chocolate flavor granola bites, and we have Quaker old-fashioned oats, right? So when you look at these two side by side, you can see kind of what Kyle is getting at, right? Because it's pretty obvious to tell which one of these two would be a quote unquote healthier choice, right? The one that you can tell, there's one ingredient on the list, you can tell what it is, you could make it at home if you wanted to, right? Here in the granola bites, chocolate flavor always gets me too, because there's not really even chocolate in there, there's chocolate flavor in there. BHT, let's see, what else is in there that's funny? Polydextrose, sodium bicarbonate. That is baking powder, in case you're wondering. So calcium carbonate, salt, you know, there's a lot more things on this list that, and especially when you're looking at high fructose corn syrup, cocoa processed with alkali, molasses, honey, natural and artificial flavors. This would be kind of hard for you to make at home, right? Because you don't have those things in your pantry. You don't have polydextrose in your pantry. A lot of those things are put in because it needs to be shelf stable. So the other thing I want to point out with this is you see the third bullet down under the granola bites where it says adds a dietarily insignificant amount of trans fat. What is a dietarily insignificant amount of trans fat? What is a trivial amount? So the rules for labeling food say if one serving has 0.5 grams of fat or less, then it doesn't have to be put on the label. But if it's 0.49 grams of fat per serving, and you have several servings of that, then you can see how that might add up. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at labels. Ingredients to look for, I touched on this. So if you're looking for sweetening sources, a lot of the words that you will see will be cane sugar. And that's a buzzword, you know, because everybody didn't like high fructose corn syrup for a while. So then everybody was like, this uses real sugar, right? Same calories, same calories. There's argument about how it actually acts chemically in your body, but at a high level, when you're looking at it, it's all sweeteners. It really kind of acts the same in your body. Cane sugar, corn sweeteners, high fructose corn syrup, anything ending with ose, right? Because that indicates a sugar molecule. Fructose, sucrose, maltose, dextrose, all of those are different types of sugar. They have a slightly different chemical composition. Honey, molasses, syrup, juice. And then there's the artificial sweeteners, sucralose, saccharin, aspartame, I can never say it right. Stevia is a big one. They're saying that's a natural sweetener. So those are sweeteners when you look at the label. That's kind of, if you find any of those things on the label, like if you look back at the one that we were just on, see the polydextrose that's on there, corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, polydextrose, molasses, honey, sugar. There's a lot of sugar in that, isn't there? Now that you know what it's called on the label. Fat types. So generally speaking, what you want to consume are oils that are liquid at room temperature, because those are your monosaturated and polyunsaturated fats generally that have a little bit more of a beneficial effect in your body. So olive oil, canola oil, avocado oil, corn oil, safflower oil, soybean, sunflower oil. You can do a whole presentation just on fats and which ones of those are better choices. I'm going to say, generally speaking, your high and monosaturated fat is probably your best choice. Olive oil being the most famous of those. I do use avocado oil as well because it has a higher smoke point. Because if you use extra virgin olive oil to fry foods on a pan, then you're destroying the good stuff that's in it. It's really designed not to be cooked. So look for a higher smoke point and a higher amount of monosaturated fats if you're going to use your oils for more of a, you know, like pan frying or cooking in the oven at 350 degrees kind of application. There's also butter, margarine, lard, and partially hydrogenated anything. So partially hydrogenated, you know what that is? They took oil, like olive oil, canola oil, something like that, and they hydrogenated it to make it more shelf stable. What it essentially does is it makes it a solid fat. It makes it like margarine. It's the margarine version because they did a little chemical experiment to it to make it more shelf stable. That's where that came from. And actually, a lot of the science shows that partially hydrogenated, those trans fats, are even worse for you than the saturated fats that you'll get from the animal sources like butter and margarine and meats and those sorts of things. So when you see those on the label, that is a fat that is in the product. Colorings, those are pretty obvious, right? What's an artificial color? I mean, it says color, yellow, red, blue. Sodium sources, salt, sodium chloride has sodium in it, MSG, monosodium glutamate, soy sauce. It can also be described on the ingredient list as broth, cured, pickled, corned, or smoked. That means there's a high amount of sodium in the product. So more ingredients you might see on the list might be So you can see this doesn't say nutrition facts, it says supplement facts. Some supplements are required to have labels, some of them are not. It's a pretty unregulated system as far as the supplements go. But you could see vitamins on there, examples of different vitamins. And this to me looks like a multivitamin label, right? Because we've got A, C, D, E, K, the B vitamins, B1, riboflavin, niacin, B6, all those. And I spelled some of those also out, so you can see some of the examples of the names on the actual label itself and some of the examples of the names on the list that's next to it. Those are all vitamins. So if you see that on the list, that's vitamins that they've added. Vitamins or minerals that they've added to the food product. All right, so here's where you get to get involved, right? Nutrition facts labels. I've got 2 here for you to take a look at, and I want you to choose the one that you feel like is a healthier choice. So I'm going to say the one that is on your left is option A, and the one that is on your right is option B. So option A is the 1 ounce serving size. Option B is the 1 slice serving size. Take a look at that nutrition facts label and choose the one that you feel like is healthier. And maybe tell me why as well. And if you have a guess as to what this is a nutrition facts label for, the slice is a dead giveaway, then tell me. Yeah, you're on the right track with option B. Does anybody know what these are nutrition facts labels for? Bread. Yep. Nutrition facts labels for bread. Do you know 1 regular size piece of bread is about 1 ounce? Yep. So 1 ounce and 1 slice are generally equivalent when you're talking about bread. If you're talking about a regular size piece of bread, not a full size Dave's Killer Bread slice of bread. That's like 2 servings. That's like 2 ounces, but it'll probably say that on the nutrition facts label. So yeah, the one option B that's on the right hand side is actually for a whole grain product as versus a refined white flour product. So you can see the calories are about the same. Total fat's about the same. Sodium is slightly less. Potassium is more. Carbohydrate is actually a little less. Fiber is more. Sugar is about the same. Protein is a little bit more. So yeah, this food, if you choose a whole grain food, it's going to give more back to you. If you're going to eat a slice of bread, you should always choose whole grain if it's possible to do that. Just beware, and we'll go through this here in just a second, beware of white bread with a tan. That's what I call it. Okay, is this healthy? What do you think? And tell me why. Do you think it's healthy? Why? Holy sodium. Sodium and carbs. What do you think this is? What do you think this food is? That's a good choice. You're close. Soup. Yes, it is canned soup. That is what this label is from. So calories are 250. Fat calories is about 50% of that. So it's got a lot of fat in it. So it probably is a cream soup, that person who guessed that. It has a ton of sodium, as does most canned soup. If you are a soup fan, I highly recommend making soup at home, because then you can control how much sodium goes into it, how much fat goes into it. You can control the fiber, you control all those things. And soup is really easy to make. It really is. And it easily makes what I call plandovers, which makes anybody's life easier if you can make more than what you need for just that meal and then take it for lunch the next day for an easy, healthy food. The other thing is it doesn't have this other extra stuff. Like I saw one of you said fillers on the chat, and that's absolutely true. If you made this at home, you're not going to be adding lactic acid. You're not going to be adding rice starch, xanthan gum, cheese flavor, mustard flour, oxalated soy protein, sodium phosphate. You're not going to be adding those things to it. So limiting your exposure to that can be good. Now I know canned soup is like a lifesaver some days, right? Yep, it is okay to have canned soup. I am not here telling you it's not okay to have canned soup. I'm just here to tell you if you can make soup from scratch and that's something that you enjoy, it's a really good idea to do it if you can. Yep. Yeah, you guys are on this. All right. Is this one healthy? This should be pretty obvious. And why not? Oops, I just gave it away. Just sugar and flavor. Yeah, this is not healthy. Look at all those, look at all the colors. Look at all the colors added to this. And it has nothing. It gives you nothing else back. It has nothing else in it. So what, dextrose, what is that? That's a fancy way of saying sugar. Yeah, exactly. Dextrose, remember the os is a sugar molecule. Yeah, os. Dextrose is a fancy way of saying sugar. Dextrose is table sugar. Yep. Glucose is the form of sugar that you actually have in your body. It doesn't taste fabulous. You can get it, like there's glucose tablets. If you know someone with diabetes or that is something that you have yourself, then you'll know those glucose tablets. And they don't taste quite as good as like regular like food products because the glucose doesn't taste quite as fabulous. Okay, what about this one? What do you think? This was a big deal when I first put together these slides. This particular food product was a big deal. It was like everybody loved them and everybody had them. And so that's why I included it. This is a Fiber One bar. Do you remember Fiber One products? And everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It has so much fiber in it. Well, look how much fiber in it. Can you see? Does it show? My little thing is in the way, so I can't see the top. Oh no, there it is. Dietary fiber, 9 grams. Wow, that's awesome. 9 grams of fiber. How great is that, right? But then you look at all the rest of it. And I'm here to tell you that a Fiber One bar is a candy bar masquerading as a health food. Look at the ingredients. What's chicory root extract? Do you even know what that is? Yeah, shellac. Anything with shellac on it is probably not super healthy, right? It makes your chocolate shiny. Shellac. Oh, it's on there twice. Confectioner shellac and then just shellac, right? That's fun to say, shellac. So yeah, Fiber One bar. So this is where, even if the front of the package says, I'm so healthy, eat me, you should turn it over and look at the back and make sure that it actually is healthy and not just junk food masquerading as health food because they threw a little fiber source in it. Okay, so other label claims, speaking of the front of your package, it is so easy to get overwhelmed with what it says on the front of the package, right? Whole grain, organic, low fat, no trans fat, high fiber, reduced fat, low fat, reduced sodium, low sodium, free range, cage free, fair trade, BPA free. Are you getting the point here? Like, this is like marketing. There are some controls over what food manufacturers can put on their packaging, but there's not a lot of controls over it. And they're always looking for ways to make it look more appealing for you. So my advice to you is really Do not pay attention to the front of the package. It might get your attention, but you always need to turn it over and look at what's actually in there. Yeah, it's advertised as gluten-free. Yeah, I know. I've got another example of silly label claims in here too. So, wow, how can a pack of donuts be so healthy? They trimmed a lot of the fat off the label. Yeah, I mean, the food industry in our country is multiple billions of dollars that all the food manufacturers are competing for you, right? We make so much food in this country. There's enough for every single person in our country to eat like 6,000 calories a day. Every single person in our country, every single day. There is a huge competition for your food dollar. So all of that stuff that they put on packaging, the way they package it, the color that they package it in, what they write it on, the font that they use, all of that stuff has been studied down, I mean, nitty gritty, your response, pilot studies and trying it out in real life situations to see which one people pick up more. It is all designed to get your food dollar and to get you to eat more so that they can make more money. So really, as you are choosing foods, please keep that in mind, right? So stepping back off of my soapbox for a second, we're going to talk about whole grains because this is something I have historically found is confusing for people. So how do you tell if it's a whole grain? And here I have bread because that's probably the most common ubiquitous whole grains, but there's other whole grains that are out there as well. So if it has a label, then what you're going to want to look for, the word whole should be the first or second ingredient. If you look at the label, it should have around 3 grams of fiber per serving and around 20 grams of whole grains per serving. It used to be a big deal where people would say 5 grams of whole grains per serving, you know, like the Ritz crackers with whole wheat flour. Have you seen those? And it says like 5 grams of whole grains per serving. If it was 100% whole grain, it would be 24 grams of whole grains per serving. That is about what you're looking for. So about 20 grams of whole grains per serving. So if you remember back, and I can skip back here really quick to the labels where we compared the whole grain versus the white flour. If you look at the label, this is how you tell the difference. Look at the fiber from one to the other. See how one has 2.3 grams and the other one has hardly any, like not even 1 gram. Look at the protein, right? 2 grams of protein versus 4 grams of protein. Okay, so that's one way to tell. The other way to tell is when you look at the label, the first word on it should be whole. So if you were to look at that ingredient list, it should say whole wheat flour, 100% whole wheat flour, right? So when you look at these pictures that are on here, that I have on here, there's some that say 100% whole grain bread, 100% whole wheat bread, whole grain seeds and fiber bread, right? 12 grain bread, whole grain white bread, sprouted sourdough, right? Butter top wheat. So the way you know if it's whole grain is by turning it over and looking at the back. And if whole is in the first or second ingredient, and if the fiber is around 3 grams of fiber per serving, or if it says like around 20 grams of fiber per serving, then you're looking at a whole grain product. Okay, so this was one of those labels that when you're, I can't remember which one of you was that brought it up, but the label claims that are on the fronts of things, right? So look at confectioner's powdered sugar. It has 0 grams of trans fat, you guys. Isn't that exciting? How much fat is in sugar? Ever? None. There's no fat in sugar. That's probably gluten-free too. Yeah. Look at the Krispy Kreme advertisement. You see that on the top? It has 0 grams of trans fat, you guys. That's so exciting. Does that mean it has no fat? It's a donut. Probably not what it means. So does trans fat free equal healthy? Trans fat is a buzzword. Pay no attention to the label. I said it already. Monosaturated fat is the best, followed by polyunsaturated fat. Sources of trans fats are those processed types of foods, the margarine types of foods, the crackers, the baked goods. A lot of times they'll use trans fats in those, although they have been picking up on public sentiment and they've been changing that a little bit and making it with real butter, and stuff like that. So saturated fat is just slightly less worse for you than trans fat. Sources of saturated fat are animal products, right? Any animal product that has fat in it, the fat is going to be saturated fat. So dairy, any kind of milk that has any milk fat in it, so anything but skim, that's all that fat is saturated fat. Butter, saturated fat. Meat, like your steaks, your chicken, your pork, all of that, saturated fat. So animal products. Does fat-free equal healthy? I would say no. I don't think so. Remember, it was, gosh, it has to have been like 15, 20 years ago now, where the big deal was the fat-free diets, right? We're all going to lose weight if we just go on a fat-free diet. So we all started eating a whole bunch of sugar. And that didn't do us any good either. So I would float to you that a fat-free diet or fat-free in and of itself does not equal healthy. So organic is another thing that can be on the labels. Considering it organic, the label says it's organic. What does that mean? It means 95% of the product is from organic sources. What it does not mean is that it's healthier for you. Is natural the same as organic? Absolutely not. To put an organic label on a food, there are laws around that. To put the word natural on a food, there's absolutely no law around that. Anybody can put natural on their food. And a lot of times it gets mixed up in our head, and that's exactly why they put it on there, because they want to give it that health halo effect. They want it to appear healthy, but so they put natural on it. So why might you choose organic? The methods that are used to grow, especially the fruits and vegetables, can contribute to soil health, decrease the use of chemicals. Occasionally you can find things that are lower in salt or sugar. A good example of that is black or beans. A lot of the time, if you look at the organic beans, they're going to have less sugar in them, or sorry, less salt in them overall than the conventionally made beans. So if sodium is an issue for you, sometimes in those canned products, you can find less sodium in the organic versions. It is not, if it says it's organic, it is not more nutritious. It's not safer. It's not more sustainable, and it can be more expensive. Now, I know that there are studies that show some of those things, and there are studies that don't show some of those things. And if that is something that you're interested in, then you can certainly investigate that. And the caveat to not safer is there are, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Dirty Dozen, but those are fruits or vegetables where it actually, just the way the fruit or vegetable is shaped, it has a tendency to keep the residues of pesticides and things like that on it more. So if that's something that you're sensitive to or concerned about, you might look up the Dirty Dozen, because those are the fruits or vegetables where it might be worth your while to look into organic. But generally speaking, the nutrition is the same, if not better, in conventionally prepared foods. Just because those products, those chemicals that are put on them for a reason. And it's not necessarily to poison you. It is to keep the food fresh. It is to help it grow bigger. It's to help it to grow without diseases. So there are reasons for those chemicals. You just have to keep that in mind if you're considering organic or not organic. What about supplements? So I always recommend to people who are actively trying to lose weight. So if that's you and you're actively trying to lose weight right now and you are limiting how many calories you take in from food during the day, that is a good time to strongly consider supplementing your diet with a multivitamin, a vitamin D, maybe an omega-3, maybe a calcium. But I'm not talking about super supplements. I'm not talking about super expensive supplements. If you want to do the super expensive supplements, the science is really mixed as to whether that's truly beneficial or not. Again, you're an individual person. If you can afford those things and you find that they do work better for your body, I'm not here to tell you no, but definitely consider it. Even if you just get, like the Nature Made from Walmart, that's a reputable company. It's a good place to get that. Consider a multivitamin, consider a calcium, consider a vitamin D, and consider an omega-3. Those are 3 places where supplementation in the science generally has beneficial effects, especially when you're limiting how much you are eating in your diet. Because if you are eating a limited calorie diet, it is extremely hard to get all of the nutrients that your body needs just from food alone. So consider that if you're on a weight loss journey to incorporate some supplements. Multivitamin, again, you don't want something that says it's going to give you 2000% of the RDA for something. You want something that says it's going to give you around 100% of the RDA for something. Generally speaking, though, the best supplement or the best medicine is real food. It is always real food. So if you can eat real food and get what you need, then always choose real food. Our bodies are designed for real food. They are not designed for man's best guess as to what we need in a tablet. Our bodies are designed to drink a cup of milk, generally speaking, not take a calcium supplement. They're designed to eat a piece of salmon and not take an omega-3 supplement. Supplements have their place, and they're just that. They're a supplement. They should not form the majority of your diet. Foods are your vitamins. That's what I tell my children when they complain about eating like spinach or some salad or whatever. I just tell them to take their vitamins and they have to have a couple bites. Choosing supplements, you generally speaking want to choose something from a reputable provider. So not like off-brand supplements or, something that you recognize. If it says USP on it, that does give you a little more peace of mind that there are some regulations in place that what they say is in the supplement is actually what's in the supplement. But there's not, like I said, a ton of regulations around supplementation, so make those choices carefully. Okay, have I overwhelmed you with information yet? Labels, ingredients, and claims. Oh my, do you feel like not Alice in Wonderland, Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz? Lions and tigers and bears, labels and ingredients and claims. Oh my. There are hundreds, perhaps thousands of nutrients that are not listed on the label that may not yet been identified. Food is your best medicine. Food is your supplement. The nutrition facts label is a great starting place, but it is not the bottom line. This is where your education, and as you learn, as you go through time, then you supplement the nutrition facts label with your own knowledge of what's good for you, what's available to you, what's going to give you the most back. Get educated. The more you know, the better your choices will be. Pay no attention to the claims on the front. That is there to make you buy it. It is there to make you buy it, and it is there to make you eat it. Concentrate on whole foods as much as you can. Identifiable foods that you could make at home. That should form the majority of your diet. I'm not here to tell you should never have a soda pop, but it should be limited in your diet if possible. The $1 million question, of course, is finding the balance between what you will eat and what you should eat. And I don't like the term should eat, because should is not a I will or an I need to. You need to think about what you will eat and what you need to eat. If it's just a should eat, it's kind of like a should do. It's something that everybody tells you should do, but you don't necessarily ever do it. So the food and fitness logs, same goals as we had last week. keep on tracking, just like we have. So a little bit of troubleshooting for the food and fitness log. Start paying attention to that detail. Dial in your serving size, because even a small difference in the serving size can make a difference in that overall amount of calories that you're getting during the day. And I have found this myself with tracking. You know, I'll type into my food tracking app like tomatoes, or I'll type into it ice cream or whatever, and it might say one serving on there is this many calories, but it doesn't define what one serving is. So just do a little research if you come across foods that are like that, kind of like I did with the Blizzard example. Do a little research, find out how much should be in there, and then really truly how much you've eaten of that. I have a resource that I sent out to one of your fellow members that helps you to estimate serving sizes based on your hand, right? So if you're looking, what is 4 ounces of meat? Because a lot of times the serving size is listed in ounces when you're tracking. So about four ounces of meat is about the width, right? The thickness and the height of the palm of your hand. It's about the size of the palm of your hand or deck of cards. That's about 4 ounces of meat, about this thick and about this big. A serving of cheese is about as big as your finger, your pointer finger, from your knuckle to the end of your finger. 1 tablespoon of fat is about the end of your thumb, right? It's about as big as the end of your thumb. So butter, oil, anything like that, it's about that big. And there's lots of other different things that are out there. I'll send out the picture for you so that you can have that, and hopefully that might help it be a little easier for you to estimate how much food you have on your plate if you don't have a scale handy. Read the labels, you know, get into it. I mean, look at it now that you have all this extra information. Maybe some of you already probably knew that, but really look at the labels of the foods that you are eating that do have labels and see what's in there. Keeping track of your food intake is the #1 most important step you can take to manage your weight. So the little girl is saying to her mom, my teacher says we should eat 5 fruits and vegetables every day. So today I had 3 raisins and 2 peas. Maybe not a serving size, actually, right? Teachers should be more specific when you talk about how much you should eat. And I mean, I kind of feel like servings of foods is kind of an old-fashioned idea to a certain extent. I do like the My Plate that they switched to instead of the food guide pyramid. So if you're looking at any given plate, the majority of that plate, up to half of what you're eating, should be vegetables, and then a little bit of fruit, a little bit of grains, a little bit of meat, right? So mostly vegetables is going to help you the most. So remember your goals. What are your goals? Think back on those, and have you been able to meet those? Is there anything that needs to be changed? You're all adults, like we've said, you're all adults, and you can modify those goals as you go along. Please write yourself a goal that you can do. Review your 3 goals. Are they working? Is your weight changing? If you want it to. I know not everybody on the line is going to want to change their weight, but if your weight isn't changing, think about why not. If you need to change your goal, do so. And I know you're missing Calvin. It's been a while since we saw Calvin, right? So we got to have a comic from him. So Calvin says, here's another problem. I can't figure it out. What's 9 plus 4? Hobbs said, ooh, that's a tricky one. You have to use calculus and imaginary numbers for this. Calvin says, imaginary numbers? Hobbs says, you know, 11, 30, 12, and all those. It's a little confusing at first. How did you learn all this? You've never even gone to school. And Hobbs says, instinct, tigers are born with it. So maybe you feel a little bit like Calvin right now, right? With the imaginary numbers and the, how are you even supposed to know this? And how are you supposed to figure it out? But give yourself a little bit of time, take it slow, just do what you can do this week, and you'll figure out more and more as you go along. Food information is another tool in your toolbox. Start thinking of it as fuel, not just food. Be aware, be accountable, and make changes proactively as much as you can. Try and get ahead of yourself a little bit. You know, if you need to, go back and rewatch week number 2, if you need to, where we talk about some strategies for what kinds of foods you have in your house, and you know, how to put them away, and drinking more water, and all of those things. Keep that in mind as you go through time and you start running into those challenges. And this is really all about, you know, making our way through it as we go. So I have a challenge for you if you want it. And I'm not going to do this to you every week. I just do it every once in a while. I throw it in. If you want to, maybe try one day this week, just one day this week, the night before, do the food log for the next day. So especially if you're a person where you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so over my calories, I don't even know what happened. This is a really good strategy for getting your arms around that. So choose a day where you feel like you have a pretty good idea of where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing. And then sit down the night before and do your food log prior to that day. So say, this is what I'm having for breakfast, what I'm having for snack, that's what I'm having for lunch, whatever it might be for you, and give that a try. Up to you, optional challenge. It's just to give you an idea of how helpful that can be. That's why I said do it just one day, because you might find that one day turns into more days if it's helpful for you. So do it just one day. Do what you've decided to do to meet your goals. If you need to, print out another week of the food and fitness log, record your food, fitness, and weight, and bring your information to our next webinar. Here's Calvin, and I see, where's my chat? Where'd it go? Do this, accountability, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to read you Calvin, and you're going to think if you have any questions for me and type them into the chat box. So Calvin says, I sure like chocolate frosted sugar bombs. Look how brown the milk gets. Hop says, ugh. Want to see something weird? Look at the nutritional information on the back panel. Wow, 100% of the daily recommended allowance of caffeine. Hey, look, you can send away for a chocolate frosted sugar bombs Buzzy the Hummingbird doll. Yeah. Maybe not the best food for Calvin to choose. I think he has enough attention problems as it is, right? Without caffeine and sugar. So hopefully this gave you some additional tools for this week that you can use to make your life a little bit easier with what you are aiming for. I don't see any other questions that popped up in the chat box, but you all know where to find me. If you do have something that comes up, please do let me know. And I hope you have a fabulous week, and we will see you next Thursday. Bye, everybody.